If I'm looking for advice on hiring in my business, can an AI life coach chatbot programmed by me, a professional life coach, help me solve it? Let's find out. I'm putting AI to the test to see if it can coach me in a real life coaching request. I'm going to share the conversation with you so that you can benefit from the insights I personally gain. And also, I want to reflect the feedback that I have about the quality of coaching that this bot is capable of. If you'd like to try it for yourself, I'll include the link to download it for free in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see the transcript next to me here on the screen. But if you're just listening, then I'm going to be reading back the conversation to you instead of reading it in real time as I go through the coaching request. I got some feedback that the audio was a little bit weird last time, so this gives us a little better chance of you hearing everything and for us to get really into the nuances of this conversation. Okay, let's dive in. I'm in a stage right now where I'm looking to hire some new support for my business, but the investment of time and energy to hire and find the support would take away time I use to maintain my business commitments. The upfront investment of time and energy to hire someone new is something I've done before, but never with 2 children and the lower energy I have available. The only way I currently see it possible is if I cram work into evenings and weekends and use my daytime work hours to begin that search, which doesn't align with my values. So, what do I do? How do I approach this transition effectively? The bot says, "You're naming a very real tension. The business needs more capacity, but the path to capacity currently appears to require spending the very capacity you don't have. That's not a logistics problem only, that's a values and energy design problem. And I hear a clear line. I'm willing to grow, but not by violating the life I'm trying to build. That matters." In coaching terms, this is exactly the kind of moment where we define the desired outcome, the obstacle, and the measure of success for this conversation, not the whole hiring process. The ICF describes coaching as partnering with the client to clarify goals, what needs to be addressed, and what success would look like in this session. So let's start at the root. By the end of this conversation, what would feel most useful to have? A clear decision, a gentler hiring strategy, permission to slow down, or a new way of seeing the whole transition? All right, so it's quoting the ICF core competencies at me, which is a little bit off putting as a client, but as a coach, I appreciate what it's trying to do. However, it did the same thing that it did in the previous segment that we did on hiring a nanny, which is it asked me what I want out of this conversation. It gave me a multiple choice, which is not ideal. Ideally, we want to leave it in the client's hands to say what they want out of it rather than take words out of the bot's mouth. And, it says in the intro that in order to set this conversation up, ideally, we want to name the desired outcome, name the obstacle, and name the measure of success for this conversation. And it just says that's what we should do, and then it doesn't do it. So, all right. I say in answer to his question, a clear vision and approach to this transition. I am in the midst of hiring and transitioning to a new nanny in June, so my capacity is even more limited in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But when that process is complete, I'd like to know how I plan to approach finding some additional support for my content creation and business processes. I ideally want to hire a video editor, a producer to co-create content with me, and a highly competent virtual assistant to help execute things I'm currently managing myself. But where to start, how to fit that in on top of my coaching and creation schedule seems like a mystery to me. That makes so much sense, it says. You're not just trying to hire help, you're trying to cross a bridge while also holding the children, the clients, the content, the business, and probably a half-eaten snack someone handed you yesterday. What I'm hearing is this: June is not the month to solve the whole business support ecosystem. June is the month to protect your nervous system while preparing the runway. So here's the question I'd start with. Of those 3 roles, the video editor, content producer, and highly competent VA, which one would create the most immediate relief in your body and your business if it were handled by someone excellent? I said, I think a video editor would make the most difference right away, and then a VA, and then a content producer would be essential for some big vision growth ideas for my channels. The bot says, that ordering already gives you a beautiful signal. Don't build the whole team first. Remove the biggest bottleneck first. The video editor is the first domino. The VA is the second. The producer is not an urgent support. They are future expansion. So the transition may not be how do I hire these 3 people, but how do I create one calm, values-aligned hiring lane for a video editor after the nanny transition is complete? Here's the powerful question. What part of video editing currently drains the most energy from you? The actual editing, choosing clips, organizing footage, writing instructions, reviewing drafts, posting edits, or something else? We've got a long multiple choice list from here, but again, like with the subject matter at hand, I don't hate that it kind of broke down the pieces of the video editing process. I think writing instructions is a big stop for me. I'd rather send all the footage and clips to the editor and just trust them to edit it, or fully edit it myself than take the time to write word for word instructions on what I want done. Writing it all out takes almost as much time as me sitting down to do it myself. But maybe I could develop better skills or at making notes or verbalizing cues in the recording itself to still relay my vision to the editor without it eating a ton of my time outside of preparing and recording the content. Yes, that feels like a keyhole. You don't actually need an editor who requires more translation labor from you. That's a really great word, by the way, translation labor. Ugh, I can't tell you how much translation labor I do in my work right now and my life. So, thanks for that little term, ChatGPT. You need an editor who can learn your taste, your rhythm, and your that's the moment instinct with lighter signals. The bottleneck may not be editing, it may be creative delegation without creative depletion. Here's the question: what would be the simplest language of direction you could realistically give during or right after recording? Voice notes, timestamp markers, a quick loom saying cues out loud before filming or while filming, a 3-line creative brief, or something else. So, something that I've learned about ChatGPT in this series is that it's very good at advice giving in business, like business coaching, which is not the same thing as life coaching for anybody new to this channel or new to the coaching world. To summarize, business coaching is code name for consulting. If you are looking for someone to give you advice, that is the role of a consultant, which there are many really incredible consultants out there who ask pretty dang good coaching questions, but they are just not a coach. They are a consultant. A life coach is trained in a certain set of skills that is not advice giving. It is very much intended to ask powerful questions that invite the client to discover their own inner answers. So the whole dynamic of an expert and a novice, where like a novice is asking the expert questions of like how to or what do I do, and the expert giving advice, that is the dynamic of many business coaches, aka consultants. And that is honestly something that chat does really well. It does give really good frameworks for business structuring, ideas. It's just, I mean, honestly, a pretty half decent business coach slash consultant. Life coaching could use a little work, probably because it's just not a human. But anyway, I really liked this question. I like the direction that we're going. So let's keep going. Right now, making comments in my editing software is efficient enough for the basic editing support I have now with my podcasting partner. But I'd love to take my videos to the next level that I envision with minimal feedback needed, and even open up space for some creative filming that I've been excited to try within this niche, as well as a passion project I've been sitting on for a long time. If I were able to film, organize the footage, offer basic vision and notes either in a short explanation at the end of the footage or in some sort of shared document, and then free up space for some more creative B-roll or even another channel I have in mind, that would fuel me so much. Then posting the assets would be a great next step for my VA to take off my hands at a later point. Right now, the holdup is definitely in the editing though. But so returning to my question, what is the approach to hiring that is most effective to take at this stage that every moment counts in the few hours a day I have to accomplish my must-dos for my business and content schedule? Do I wait until I work my ass off to get ahead of my posting schedule? Or do I do both at the same time now, after the nanny is hired because my nervous system can only handle so much? And what platform do I search on? And what's the best hiring process for finding a good editor? Chat says, I'm going to give you both a values-aligned coaching frame and a concrete hiring process. I'll keep the center of gravity on protecting your capacity, not hustling harder. I would not try to get ahead and hire at the same time right now. That sounds like a recipe for turning I need support into I will now climb a mountain carrying the support that I need in a backpack. Very entrepreneurial, very noble, very unnecessary. Look at chat having a sense of humor. The approach I'd recommend is, number one, protect the nanny transition window. For the next 2 to 3 weeks, your job is not to hire a business team. Your job is to stabilize the home system. The only business support task I'd allow during this window is a tiny, quote, capture practice, where you notice something that you want an editor to know, drop it in a simple note called Future Editor Brain Dump. No job posts, no interviews, no sourcing, just breadcrumbs. I really appreciate this as a side note because as a creative slash possibly ADHD human in this world, I know that my temptation is once I have an idea, I want to implement it. Partly because I don't want to get perfectionisty or in my own way about planning everything out to the point I just haven't executed anything. So I've gotten in a really good habit of when the idea is formed enough and I've given myself enough time and space to reflect on what I want and how I want it to go, I usually just execute. The problem is when I have several of those kind of ideas that I want to execute on at the same time with a limited capacity. Anyone relate? So, my challenge, even before I had kids, but especially now that I have kids, is the pace that I take. Because what I would like to do is everything, everywhere, all at once. But at this moment in time, that is not my commitment to myself. That is not the life that I want to live. And that's also not even feasible in terms of the energy capacity that I have to give. So, what that means is I don't sacrifice the ideas, I sacrifice the timeline. I end up just taking things slower than I want to, which usually ends up in my favor. Like things get clarified if I am willing to slow down and let them unfold within my values framework. So I'm not going to betray a value of mine in order to work late into the night to get something done just because of some arbitrary timeline I've set for myself. And I clarify what I want along the way, which is a benefit. But it does kind of, for some ideas, can end up being a buzzkill of sorts where like, oh, I lose steam and momentum when I put that project on the back burner for a while and then I come back to it and I'm like, it doesn't look the same or feel the same as when I initially had that idea. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's just part of the creative process or my creative process. I would love to hear if other people relate to that experience. But anyway, so with it, when it comes to business stuff, especially like when we overlap my creativity with business goals, this can also be very true where I want to tackle all my creative goals. I want to refine all my systems and I want to like be at the next step sooner than my life allows. And part of this process is embodying a level of patience and grace that I have not heretofore practiced. I always feel a certain level of impatience with the process in my business because I'm excited about the things that I want to build. So I really do appreciate the approach that my ChatGPT bot is taking with me, which is focus on one value at a time or one project at a time, where I'm in a nanny transition window, acknowledging that that is a big energy trap for me right now. And it is the like stability that I need in order to open up more space for me to do these other things. And it's still giving me something I can do to slowly take one more step and one more step and one more step closer to the thing that I want. So really valuable insight that I'm gaining that I hope you are as well. Number 2, after the nanny transition, hire the video editor first. Your first hire should be the person who frees the most creative energy fastest. A video editor who can work from light creative direction, not detailed instructions. That means your hiring filter is not just good editor. It is, can this person understand my taste, make strong creative choices, and reduce the amount of explaining I have to do? That's the difference between hiring hands and hiring creative leverage. Gold. Number 3, do not wait until you are fully ahead. I would not wait until you've, quote, worked your ass off to get ahead by a month. That keeps you inside the same pattern. I must exhaust myself before I'm allowed to receive help. Amen. Instead, aim for a minimum viable buffer, perhaps 1 to 2 weeks of essential content covered, not a heroic month. Enough to create breathing room, not enough to prove your worth to the productivity gods. Then use a small contained hiring lane. Number 4, make hiring a project with a hard container. For example, 2 60 to 90-minute blocks per week for 3 weeks. That's it. Not evenings, not weekends, not whenever I can squeeze it in. A real container. Your hiring process could look like this. Week 1, define and source. Create one job post, gather sample videos that show your desired style, and invite candidates. Week 2, paid test edit. Choose 3 candidates for a small paid trial using the same raw footage and the same very simple brief. Week 3, choose and onboard. Pick the person who best balances creative instinct, communication, reliability, and ability to reduce your workload. Use the right platforms. I'd start with referrals first, then a curated freelance platform second. Ask 5 to 10 creator friends, podcast people, online business owners, or coaches. Do you know a strong short form or YouTube style video editor who can work from light creative direction and has good creative instincts? For platforms, I'd look at Upwork, probably the best broad option for finding and testing multiple editors. Their own hiring guidance emphasizes a targeted job post, filtering candidates, interviews, and agreeing clearly on a scope before starting. Contra, which is good for portfolio forward creative freelancers, especially if style and taste matter. Fiverr Pro, better if you want a defined project package, but I'd be cautious if you need a long-term creative partner rather than a one-off task. LinkedIn, useful for posting to your network and finding people through warm connections. My instinct for you, referrals and Upwork or Contra. That was what I was thinking too. Not because they're perfect, but because you need enough candidates to compare creative judgment. Number 6, the best hiring process for your situation. Do not hire from a portfolio alone. Hire from a paid test. Give each candidate 1, a short raw clip or small batch of footage. 2, a 3 to 5 sentence creative brief. 3, 2 to 3 example videos you like. 4, a clear ask. Please edit this in the style you think would best serve my audience. 5, 1 question. What creative choices did you make and why? The last question matters. You're hiring their eye, not just their software skills. Your ideal editor should be able to say something like, I cut this pause because it slowed the emotional momentum. I kept this moment because your expression made the point land. I added this B-roll because it visually supported the transformation. That person is gold. That person is not giving you another child to raise. Nice. Number 7, your lightweight direction system. You already know the answer here. Don't write word-for-word instructions. Create a repeatable handoff. Record the footage. At the end, record a 60-second editor note where you say the goal, the best moment, the vibe, and any must-keep, must-cut notes. Drop footage into a shared folder, add 1 to 3 written notes only if needed, and let them do a first pass. Your editor's job is to turn your light signals into strong edits. Your job is not to become a full-time translation department. The bigger reframe. This transition is not, how do I squeeze hiring into an already full life? It is, how do I let the business evolve without making my body pay the invoice? That may be the whole doorway. My coaching question for you. What would you need to believe about receiving support for hiring to feel like a legitimate business priority, not an indulgence you have to earn after everything else is handled? Okay, so that was a lot all at once. And to be fair, in business coaching, I feel like this is appreciated. Like, if this were a life coaching conversation where I'm genuinely looking for some inward exploration, I don't respond well with this like deep diving point framework for me to do. I really much prefer a very short reflection and a question for me to dive deeper, as we talked about earlier in the whole business consultant / coaching comparison. But if we're framing this as kind of like a business coaching conversation with a sprinkle of life coaching, it's just a lot to have all of that information spewed at you and then to change gears and ask a coaching question. I feel like what I would have appreciated is like some sort of question that ping pongs back to me as like, okay, what what did you get out of all of that? And like, what resonates or what's the first steps to take, like breaking it down into facilitative coaching rather than giving me all of that and then asking me a deep diving question about what do I need to believe in order to receive support. Like those are two different pathways in my brain. So it's a lot, but I went ahead and answered its question. So I said, I have reached a pivot point in my business that I've been at before, but it's been a while. And that is a position of investing forward. Hiring this editor will improve my life and systems immensely, but it's not going to make a high level ROI right away. But I need to believe that freeing my time and creative energy will have a measurable impact on my revenue and fulfillment, and it's totally worth it. I also need to prioritize a VA to help me begin building my community platform and offerings, as well as most likely a new website. Do I wait until I've finished hiring and onboarding the editor to then initiate the search for a VA? Or should I use the 2 times a week 90-minute block for both searches? I'm kind of doing that business coachy thing where I'm asking them for ideas, which is fine. I would not run both full searches at once. I'd use the 2 times a week 90-minute block for one active hire and one passive runway. So active hire, video editor, passive runway, VA clarity capture. Because the editor is the current bottleneck. The VA is important, but if you split your limited hiring energy too early, you risk creating 2 half-open loops. And open loops are basically glitter in the nervous system. They get everywhere. That's funny. Here's the clean approach. Phase 1, editor first, VA runway quietly in the background. For the next hiring cycle, your only active search is the editor. During that same period, keep a simple VA document where you capture tasks as they arise. I don't want to post these assets myself. I need someone to upload, reformat, schedule this. I need help organizing community platform tasks. I need website project coordination. I need someone to track recurring business processes. This turns the VA role from a vague, I need help with everything, into a clear job description without requiring a separate hiring sprint. Phase 2. Once editor trial is underway, begin VA search. You do not need to wait until the editor is fully perfect and emotionally adopted into the family. I would wait until you've reached one of these milestones. The editor has completed a paid test and you've chosen them, or the editor is in their first 1 to 2 weeks of onboarding and the process is stable enough. Then begin the VA search. So the sequence is, number 1, nanny transition stabilizes. Number 2, start editor search. Number 3, choose editor through paid test. Number 4, begin editor onboarding. Number 5, start VA search using the task list you captured. And number 6, later consider producer/content strategist. Why not both at once? Because hiring is not just time, it is decision load. For each role, you are clarifying expectations, reviewing candidates, comparing personalities, imagining workflows, making judgment calls, and dealing with uncertainty. Right now, your business does not only need more labor, it needs you to protect your role as the creative center. The editor is the hire that gives energy back fastest. The VA is the hire that will operationalize that freed up energy. But if you hire the VA before you've clarified the content workflow, you may end up giving them a fog machine and asking them to organize the mist. Again, I said this in the previous segment about hiring for my nanny, but using metaphors is just so good. And I have to say, ChatGPT comes up with great metaphors. I love this idea of here's a fog machine, organize the mist. I feel like when I first started as a business owner and I hired a VA, that's exactly what kind of direction I gave. I was like, help me organize my brain. And they were just kind of like, okay. And of course, it didn't go well. And then the more experience I gained in business, the more clarity I gained in defining roles and expectations and being clear up front about what is expected of them so that we don't get deep in and they aren't equipped for the things that I'm asking of them. So this is a great reminder of that. And I just love the metaphor. The belief underneath this. What you said is important. I need to believe that freeing my time and creative energy will have a measurable impact on my revenue and fulfillment. I'd soften that slightly. Okay, tiny little pushback. Thanks, chat. You don't need blind belief. You need a measurable experiment. Okay. For the editor, define a 60-day success measure. Are you spending fewer hours editing? Are you posting more consistently? Are you recovering creative energy? Are you able to film higher quality or more inspired content? Are you creating space for the community platform, offers, or website? Are you less resentful of the content machine? That way, this becomes an investment thesis, not a leap of faith. My recommendation, use your 2 weekly hiring blocks like this. Block 1, editor search, candidate review, tests, edits, feedback, onboarding. Block 2, editor process plus 15 to 20 minutes of VA capture only. Not a VA search yet, just capture. Once the editor is selected, convert block 2 into the VA search. The mantra might be 1 active hire, 1 future runway, 0 weekend heroics. And here's the coaching question I'll leave you with. What would change in your business if you treated creative energy as a primary asset, not as something you spend after all the real work is done? Nice. I would be more inspired and fueled to not only create, but also invite people into my ecosystem. When I feel hamstrung to what I'm currently have going on, it makes me much less open to offering more of myself to clients, which keeps my revenue handicapped. But by building systems that primarily fuel my creativity and capacity, I'm freer to create more offerings, more openings, and more possibilities for expansion and impact. Thank you. This conversation is complete for me. It said, beautiful, that sounds like the heart of it. You're not hiring to escape work, you're hiring to protect the source of your best work. And there's a powerful reframe here. The editor is not merely a cost center, they are a capacity multiplier. The VA is not just admin support, they are infrastructure for invitation, community, and expansion. So your next chapter may be less, how do I manage more, and more, how do I build a business that keeps me close to the work only I can do? That feels like a worthy compass. All right. I feel like at the end of this business coachy segment that I've done in this series so far, I'm always left feeling very supported and understood. Who is that? Oh, that's my husband walking around outside. Hello. Anyway, I'm always feeling very seen and supported and understood because when you approach business coaching with the loose skills of a life coach, I feel like that's the best of both worlds. I have been burned in the past by working with a business coach, multiple business coaches who have no training or even intention of asking the client clarifying questions or even like deepening the conversation to align with the client's vision and values. I feel like a lot of times it can turn into very head-based copy and paste formulas of this is what I did and this is what worked for me. This is the system that I've used. Here's my expertise to your novice situation. Take from it what you will, and a lot of times he'll say, that's just me. Maybe it'll go differently for you as like a disclaimer for if it doesn't work for you, then maybe it's just different or something. But what I appreciate about how AI approaches this sort of a conversation when it's business centered is it is really drawing from, I guess, a lot of resources that are already online in terms of like a hiring process and very practical frameworks that the business world has published everywhere on the internet, and the chat is clearly making use of it. And it's also taking in my feedback and my training and programming of the bot, where I'm really more interested in the depth underneath the conversation and what are we really talking about and how does this conversation align with your values as a human and, your belief system and all of that. So it definitely tried to incorporate some of those deeper questions. Again, like I said, it was a little bit jarring going back and forth between it giving me frameworks and giving me instructions and how to step-by-step stuff, and then all of a sudden asking me some like deep question that like wasn't where my brain was going. I mean, it's tough because I like that it's going deeper instead of just staying surface level, but in terms of how well it worked for me, it would have been a little bit more supportive to bridge between the feedback and me reiterating what I find most valuable out of that feedback so that I can almost iterate for myself like, okay, this is my takeaway from all that stuff you just said to me. And then follow that up with a deeper question rather than here's all this information. Who knows what you took away from it? I'm going to ask you a deep question now. That's not quality coaching. But all that to be said, I got a lot out of this conversation, and I'm really excited to implement the plan of the 2 blocks. That was very helpful for me too, in terms of I feel like I can kind of tackle a project like this in the spare cracks of the day, in the pockets of the day, And that's such a big energy drain. So just the simple idea of blocking my time for it and dedicating, a couple times a week, this block of time is for moving this forward and answering these emails and reviewing this footage and reviewing platforms, all the tasks that are within this project. I love defining that into a clear block. And that was just a really great takeaway in and of itself, let alone all the good feedback about, starting to capture tasks while like creating the runway for the other hire while I'm actually in the project of the first hire. I love balancing those two things and capturing the little ideas that I have for the other roles and moving that forward inch by inch while I'm actually really focusing my time and energy on the most important hire, which is first an editor for me. I definitely do recommend using this chatbot for any business quandaries you have for yourself. So head to the description and get yourself this free chatbot that I made because honestly, it's been really supportive and I think it might be for you too. So let me know in the comments if you do that and if you got any value out of this conversation for yourself. And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode on the Contentment Creator channel, where we put AI to the test with some real life coaching. Whether you caught the whole episode or one of our segments, either way, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. And I hope you are subscribed so you don't miss another episode. Join me in my mission to help a world full of content creators become a world of contentment creators. Bye, y'all.